Hello YouTube, Sanxion here. It's time for another Rave Recreations episode. And today we're going to talk about Hypnosis by Psychotropic. If you don't know the track, as ever, pause this video, go and listen to it, go buy it. It's a great track. Classic. So let's just jump in. First thing that everyone remembers about this track is the organ sound. And I've done a little bit of preparation as ever, and this is what we ended up with. It's a really simple, kind of cheap organ sound. It's from a Casio CZ1, I believe. It may be a 101, not 100% sure. But here's a multi-sample that I made out of a Casio CZ VST recreation. I'm not using the full VST because I really only wanted it for this sound, so I've multi-sampled it. I've just done, if you look at what I've done here, I sampled a C, then an F, then a C, then an F, and mapped them over the keyboard. And without all our effects on, it's quite a cheap, horrible, well not horrible, but it's a cheap toy synth sound. You know, it's kind of terrible recreation of an organ. But we're doing some things to make it cool. Cut off the bit of the low end, because there's something rumbly kind of going on there. We look. And we've also boosted around 9K. And just because if you listen to the notes without and then with, it's just bringing out some of those top harmonics. And we're also adding a chorus. This is a free chorus plugin by Kairos. It just adds a bit of depth to the sound and brings out some of those mid to high harmonics again. And we're also adding quite a lot of reverb just to match kind of what they do on the record. And again, I'm using this Arts Acoustic reverb. Quite a long decay, not doing too much. Like I'm basically not reverbing the bottom. Is reverbing a verb? I'm not reverbing the bottom anyway. But it's quite high in the mix. It's quite a wet sound. And then also we've got just a touch of mono delay on there. Really low in the mix, just kind of tickling away. And the MIDI is quite interesting because the last note of the phrase, this G here, is actually an eighth before the bar starts. So if we put the click on and play the MIDI, you see this, that's the G there, starting before this MIDI block that I've done. So it comes in on that eighth before. But as we loop, that last note of the phrase becomes the first as you listen to it. And the MIDI's really, really simple MIDI, 3 notes. And that is all there is to that sound. Very simple, but sounds good. The next sound I want to talk about is later on in the track, we get this pluck sound over the top of the organ. So let's firstly look at the MIDI for that. Again, it's quite simple. Quite high up though. Yeah, it's like a little, some high notes, I think. A little fall there, but the sound is what we're here for. And this looks like a preset I've tweaked because it's got a name. But what it is, if we look, it's just a single oscillator, 2 voice. The 2 voice just gives it a little bit of width, slightly. It's ever so subtle that. All it is this weird kind of tri-saw, it's called, so it's half triangle, half saw wave. And I'm just basically tweaked this envelope, so it's quite a pluck rather than a, you know, you really hear the triangle wave in the background when you do that, but we've made it more plucky. So basically, even if we hold the you know, even if we hold a note, it goes a lot quieter. But and that's kind of all there is to that. A nice, simple sound. Again, we look at our effects, it's just rolling off some of that bottom because we can't hear that, so why have it there? I'm just using it more like a filter, just to filter out these frequencies here. And we just got a little bit of mono delay on it, on the bar. But yeah, when we play that on its own, we could probably get rid of some of this. And then with the organ, and there's one more sound in the track, and it's this 7th stab, and we'll play the MIDI for that. And if you've watched the last rhythm Rave recreation that I did, it's a very similar sample to that. I've actually used a sample for whatever reason. Well, I know what reason. There's when I made it in the synth, I made it in Silent, I think, and it just wasn't quite gritty enough. So I actually found a sample that is kind of doing the same stuff, but it's kind of got that been sampled 50 times over kind of grit to it. Plus, when you play the low notes, it kind of sounds cooler. I can't actually remember where that sample's from, but I just know it was very, very similar to the one they used in the record. You'll have heard it in a million other tracks. But when we play it, let's quickly look at what our effects. Again, we're just cutting off some of that bottom end. There's obviously some kind of record rumble going on there. And we've got quite a lot of reverb going on. But again, we've cut off quite a lot of the bottom end. And we're also got quite a lot of stereo ping pong delay. But you could probably, we could use the same stab that we made for the last rhythm Rave recreation, but like I say, I think that one kind of sounds a little bit more authentic to what the record's doing. But it is pretty much the same, it's a 7th of a saw wave. Now later on in the first half of the track, the organ does actually change key slightly. We'll listen to that, and we'll look at the MIDI as we go along actually. Let's glue some of these together so we can have a look. And it just drops down 2 notes, 2 semitones, everything just drops down. Very simple. And then also later in the track there's a part where the 7th stab goes down. I believe that goes down 2 notes as well. Yep, 2 semitones, but the organ stays where it was. Have a listen to that. And after 8 bars, it goes back up. There's also a couple of other sounds in the first half of the track. We get this little saw wave thing. That's a very simple sound again. The MIDI is just single notes in a sort of dubby kind of way. But the sound itself is literally 2 saw waves with a little bit of detune on. And this envelope just to make it... I didn't want all that attack there. It's definitely not in the original track. So I just took some of that attack off. And it's sort of a little bit plucky at the start, but the note does hold. But they're quite short notes anyway. Also, when the 7th stab comes in after the first 8 bars of that, we get this little voiced kind of synth. That's not exactly the same as the record. I think they probably used a sample on theirs, but when we play it all together, it does kind of sound similar. And that is just a voice synth out of Avenger. It's called Yay Lead. I think it's in the Factory Bank, yeah. And I just did some tweaking on that too. I think it's got loads of resonance on it. Yeah. That's more like the original patch. I took all that resonance off and I played around with some of the effects. And I think on the channel, I'm not doing anything there. It's just as is. And one more sound is this, towards the end of the track. With the organ sounds. And that is literally the same stab. But if we look at what we're doing here, we've got Vengeance filter, and we've got an LFO, and I quite like filter because it actually shows you what the LFO is doing. And we're basically just moving this sort of resonant peak up and then back down on an LFO. And we look at the MIDI for that again. It's nice and simple. You know, nothing too exciting going on there. Just nice little bit of processing on a sound. And that's it for the musical content. There's also some vocals in the track, so let's have a quick look at those. As you may expect, they're all samples. And the first sample we have is this from a Jocelyn Brown record. And this is exactly as they use it in the track. It's got a little bit of music on and everything. There's also this little bit of vocal. And also this very well-known, well-used bit of sample. It's not over. It's not over. And I did a little bit of tweaking, chopped into each syllable, just to get it more in the same sort of timing that they had it. I don't know whether they did that on the track or when I'm just hearing it wrong, but when I play all that stuff together with our music, it definitely works and sounds pretty similar to what they had. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for the music. The only thing we need to talk about are the drums. Now, I've got as close as I can, but there's definitely another layer that they're using that I haven't actually used. But again, fairly simple, right? So the main portion of the beat is this old Bobby Bird Hot Pants loop. But if you know the track, and I'm sure you've been to listen to it if you don't know the track, there's an open hat every other beat. I haven't got that quite right, there's a little bit more ringy. And that's just a sample I found in a Vengeance pack. Vengeance Essential House Open Hi-Hat 55. It's fairly close, it's not exact, but there is also on the second snare an 808 clap. And that is just the stock clap out of the 808. No tweaks, just literally as is. And then there's also a kick drum layer just to beef it up. And then they also have another layer on top of theirs, which I can't quite place. I would assume it's a sample. It's again some more sort of ringy kind of snare thing. But for the purposes of what we've got here, I think that's a fairly good recreation. Let's have a quick listen, see how close we are. So just skipping around, see how close we get. A little bit loud. And then this last little section. So that is kind of all there is to it. It's a fairly simple track when you start to break it down. I think the theme with most of my videos is making music doesn't have to be complicated. If you go and sit there and watch a million YouTube videos about how to make music, it can be kind of overwhelming, I think. Which is why I wanted to do these videos breaking down old tracks, just to show how not complicated they totally can be. Just as an aside, let's play the differences on these two beats. So I'll play the recreated beat first and then a sample from the record. And you'll hear what I'm on about with that extra little layer on top. So that's kind of what we're missing there. But I think everything else is kind of close. And hopefully kind of was made in a similar way to the way they made the track. So hopefully you found that interesting. If you did, like and subscribe and, all of that. But until next time, see ya.